The first introduction to punk rock to me was in January of 1977. CBS ran a TV show in 1977 called 1976, The Year in Review, to which they dedicated the last 10 minutes to the Sex Pistols, basically mocking them and saying, look how gross these guys are, look at these idiots. And I was sold. I just went in hook, line, and sinker and said, that's for me, I'm gone, bye.
I knew probably from about 9 years old I wanted to be a singer. Punk wasn't around when I was 9.
I think what got me into punk rock and inspired to be in a band was when I first started playing guitar, there was the bands that were popular were like Kiss and Aerosmith and Queen, and there's these huge stage productions, larger than life images, and I could not relate. I never thought I could be that.
You know, when your hero is Keith Emerson, you might as well just quit because you can never be a virtuoso like that, you know. But then you hear Johnny Ramone and you think, wow, you know, I can do that.
When I heard punk rock, it was the most heavy guitar-oriented rock I've ever heard, and it seemed accessible, like, yeah, I could do that.
It breaks down the barrier between the star and the fan. Right. You know, it's the great leveler.
Got me excited about the whole new genre of punk rock back then.
By the time I was 15, Rodney on the Rock had become my main focus every Sunday night at midnight, I think, or 10 o'clock. And those bands were so inspiring to me that, you know, I really felt like I was a part of something here in LA, even though I was too young to go hang out in Hollywood. There's another element, of course, that's just as important as the musical side, and that is the feeling like I just did not belong. The feeling that I was a complete outcast in Southern California culture.
I'm not sure why I wanted to be a punk rocker, but I always felt like I didn't belong, and punk rock kind of gave a voice to that for me.
And I was a real geek. I probably still am, but back then, man, I was a real nerdo. People in my junior high school were getting laid, smoking weed. I mean, they just looked at me in disgust. So it was partly the feeling of being a complete outcast.
I went to a high school in 1980 where the coolest kids were punk rockers. So I wanted to fit in, so I joined a team of outcasts. The formative years, your best friends discover this kind of music. And I guess I'd been at summer camp or something and came in late. Everybody's hair was funny. So I want a piece of that, I said. So I got some.
The bands that influenced me back in the day, the ones that had the greatest impact on me were definitely number one, the Germs. Darby Crash and the Germs with Pat Smear and Don Bowles and Lorna. And their album GI was just transformative for me.
The biggest band that I think had any kind of influence on what we did was the Adolescents, because they were doing three-part harmonies. And they were the first band that we'd ever seen, like as a punk rock band, doing three-part harmonies.
Black Flag, maybe not musically, but attitude, the way they just dominated their space. You know, even with that whole different chain of singers, and of course, you know, Henry being from Washington, when he joined, we paid a lot more attention to it. I always admired their total domination of what they did. It was their show, their stage. They were frightening, which I still get a kick out of. I love having that aspect of it.
When it comes to influences, I always qualify it by saying I was influenced at a very young age, and having started in Bad Religion at the age of 15, much of Bad Religion's early history, I was still being influenced because that's a very influential age. So, but before the band really started, I was influenced by pop sounding, you know, pop rock music that was not necessarily commercial. Stuff like Todd Rundgren and, you know, Utopia and things like that were very influential to me.
I love all kinds of music. I've always loved R&B from a very young age. I think my favorite group of all time is the Beatles, and this might be surprising to Bad Religion fans, but I guess, you know, I'd put the top rock groups of all time in order as you know, the Beatles, the Beach Boys, and the Stones. I know I'm a weirdo. Most guys wouldn't put the Beach Boys second, but And you know, I still stand by that today. And I know there's not a punk band in the top 3, but that's how it is for me.
The greatest musical love for me is still Elvis Costello. I think that the angry young man that he was, and now he's kind of a bitter middle-aged man, that's for me. It's fascinating to me because he sums up a lot of my feelings fairly quickly. So I've been pretty consistent with Elvis Costello through my life. Other things have come and gone, but he's certainly the one that I could name as the #1 influence musically, the one that fills the hole in my soul.
I first met the guys in the band when I was in the Circle Jerks about 1980 at this hot dog stand, Okie Dog, where all the punk rockers used to hang out. I think it was Greg came up to me and said, "Hey, we're in this band from the Valley. Here's our demo. Check it out." And I said, "Okay, well, if I like it, we're going to be on Rodney on the Rock radio show this weekend. Played over the air." So I listened to the tape, and it was good. So we played over the air and kind of became friends with the guys.
I just remember early on, he would drive us around to parties. He was 2 years older, so he had the wheels, and he wasn't from the Valley. He knew all the real happening parties, the punk parties out here in the LA Basin.
I asked him to come in and play a solo on a song that I wrote called Part 3. He was in the Circle Jerks, and we were playing a lot of shows together, and I said, I have this idea for kind of dueling banjos in this song. I want you to kind of play lead guitar against Brett at the same time. And he came into the studio and recorded his solo, and he never left. He just stayed. It was like, I think he's in the band now.
Greg was by far the most social of any punk in LA in the early developing years of the punk scene.
I guess around 1990, when the Circle Jerks broke up for the first time, is when Bad Religion kind of like became my main band. I got kind of lucky as the Circle Jerks were doing this, Bad Religion was doing this. So I am blessed. Thank you.